Have you ever noticed that the harder you chase something, the farther away it seems? The more desperately you try to manifest success, love, financial freedom, peace, or happiness, the more your attention seems to remain fixed on the one thing you don't have. It's almost as if every effort to force life into changing reminds you of what feels absent. You repeat affirmations hoping they'll work. You visualize until you're exhausted. You search for signs, waiting for the universe to send confirmation that your dream is on its way. Yet beneath all those practices, there's often one quiet feeling that never truly leaves. A feeling that says, I still don't have it. And that feeling becomes the foundation from which you continue to live. What if that's the very thing holding you back? What if the greatest obstacle isn't a lack of opportunity, a lack of talent, or even bad luck? What if the only thing standing between you and the life you long for is the simple belief that it's somewhere outside of you, waiting to arrive? For just a moment, allow yourself to consider a completely different perspective. What if you have spent years trying to become someone you were never meant to become because at your deepest level you've already been that person? What if your greatest power isn't found in creating a new reality, but in remembering the reality that has always existed beneath fear, doubt, and conditioning? That idea may sound unusual at first, because from childhood we've been taught to believe that life moves in one direction. We are told that first we struggle, then we succeed. First we work hard, then we become worthy. First we prove ourselves, then we deserve happiness. Everything seems to suggest that fulfillment lies somewhere in the future, just beyond the next achievement, the next relationship, the next promotion, or the next milestone. So we learn to chase. We chase grades in school because we're told they'll determine our future. We chase approval because we want to feel accepted. We chase careers because we hope success will finally make us feel secure. We chase relationships believing someone else will complete us. We chase money believing it will remove every fear. And even when we reach one goal, another immediately appears on the horizon. The chase never truly ends. Have you ever wondered why people who achieve everything they once dreamed about sometimes still feel empty? Why does someone become wealthy yet remain anxious? Why does someone find the relationship they wanted yet still fear losing it? Why does someone become famous but continue searching for validation from strangers? Because external achievements can never permanently solve an internal misunderstanding. If someone secretly believes they are not enough, no amount of success can convince them otherwise for very long. The applause fades, the excitement settles, the newness disappears, and eventually the same old questions return. Am I enough? Will this last? What if I lose everything? Those questions don't come from circumstances. They come from identity. Most people spend their lives trying to improve their circumstances without ever questioning the identity from which those circumstances continue to emerge. Imagine pouring clean water into a glass that still has dirt at the bottom. At first, everything looks fresh, but stir the glass and the dirt rises again. You might blame the water. You might replace it over and over. But until the glass itself is clean, the result remains the same. In much the same way, many people keep changing jobs, cities, relationships, routines, or financial goals, hoping that one more external change will finally bring lasting peace. Sometimes those changes help for a while, but eventually old fears return because they were never caused by the outside world. They were quietly living within. Think about how often your mood changes simply because of a single thought. You wake up feeling fine. Then you remember an unpaid bill. Instantly your emotions shift. Nothing in the outside world changed during those few seconds. Only your thought changed. Or perhaps someone doesn't reply to your message for several hours. Immediately your mind begins creating stories. They're ignoring me. I must have said something wrong. They don't care. Your heart begins racing. Your mood drops. Hours later they reply apologizing because they were simply busy. Again, notice what happened. Reality didn't hurt you. Your interpretation did. This is why your inner world deserves far more attention than your outer circumstances. Because your inner world gives meaning to everything you experience. Two people can walk through the exact same storm and come out completely different. One sees disaster, the other sees growth. One sees rejection, the other sees redirection. One sees failure, the other sees education. The event may be identical, but the experience becomes entirely different because of the meaning each person assigns to it. Life is always responding to the story you consistently tell yourself. Many people believe they are simply reacting to life. In truth, they are often reacting to the meaning they've already decided life has. If you believe people cannot be trusted, your mind begins collecting evidence to support that belief. You notice betrayals. You remember disappointments. You become suspicious of kindness. Soon your belief feels like undeniable truth, not because it was universally true, but because your attention filtered reality through that expectation. The same happens with abundance. Someone who believes opportunities are everywhere notices possibilities that others completely overlook. Someone who believes they are unlucky often walks past the same opportunities without recognizing them. Their minds are looking for different evidence. This is one of the most fascinating things about human consciousness. You rarely experience life exactly as it is. You experience life through the lens of who you believe yourself to be. If you believe you are confident, ordinary conversations feel exciting. If you believe you are awkward, those same conversations become frightening. If you believe you deserve success, challenges feel temporary. If you believe success belongs only to other people, every obstacle feels permanent. The outer experience changes because the inner lens changes. That is why constantly trying to fix the outside while ignoring the inside becomes exhausting. It's like trying to erase a shadow without moving the object creating it. The shadow isn't the source. It is only the effect. For years, many people unknowingly fight shadows. They argue with circumstances, they complain about people, they blame timing, they blame luck, they blame the economy, they blame their past. Sometimes those factors genuinely make life more difficult. No one is denying that challenges exist. But even within difficult circumstances, there remains one thing no one can permanently take from you: the meaning you choose. History is filled with people who faced extraordinary hardship yet refused to let hardship define their identity. Their freedom began long before their circumstances changed, because they understood something many people never discover. Real power begins inside. Have you ever watched a child pretending to be a superhero? The child doesn't stop every few minutes asking, "Do I look powerful enough?" They simply become the character. They move differently, speak differently, stand differently. Their imagination becomes so real that their behavior naturally changes. Adults often lose this ability. Instead of embodying possibility, they constantly measure current circumstances. I'll smile when things improve. I'll feel confident after I succeed. I'll relax after I make enough money. Life becomes one endless condition after another. Yet peace keeps moving farther away because it always depends on the next achievement. What if peace was never supposed to be postponed? What if confidence wasn't a reward? What if worthiness wasn't something earned? Think about the sun hidden behind thick clouds. On a cloudy day, someone might say, the sun disappeared. But did it really disappear? Of course not. It remained exactly where it had always been. Only the clouds blocked your view. In the same way, your confidence doesn't disappear because you experience failure. Your value doesn't disappear because someone rejects you. Your potential doesn't disappear because you've made mistakes. Those experiences are like passing clouds. They may temporarily hide what has always existed, but they never destroy it. Unfortunately, most people identify with the clouds instead of remembering the sun. I failed, therefore I am a failure. I was rejected, therefore I am unlovable. I lost money, therefore I will always struggle. Notice how quickly temporary events become permanent identities. Yet they were never meant to define you. They were experiences, not definitions. Life keeps inviting you to remember the difference. Every single day presents countless opportunities to choose which story you will strengthen. Will you strengthen the story of limitation, or will you strengthen the story of possibility? This isn't about pretending problems don't exist. It's about refusing to hand your identity over to them. Because once identity changes, perception changes. Once perception changes, decisions change. Once decisions change, your direction changes. And over time, your entire life begins reflecting those new choices. Everything begins with remembering who you are beneath the noise. Not the opinions you've collected. Not the labels others placed upon you. Not the fears inherited from painful experiences. Not the voice constantly reminding you of yesterday's mistakes. Beneath all of that exists something steady, calm, creative, and powerful. Something that has never been broken. Something that has never doubted its own worth until it was taught to. Imagine meeting the version of yourself that has never questioned whether they deserve happiness. How would they walk? How would they speak? How would they handle disappointment? How would they wake up each morning? Would they constantly compare themselves to others? Would they spend hours worrying about opinions? Would they postpone joy until everything became perfect? Probably not. They would move through life with a quiet confidence, not because every problem had disappeared, but because they no longer believed problems had the authority to define them. That quiet confidence is not something you have to manufacture. It is something you uncover. Like a sculpture hidden inside a block of marble. It has always been there. The sculptor doesn't create the masterpiece from nothing. They simply remove everything that doesn't belong. Perhaps your journey is much the same. Maybe you don't need to become someone new. Maybe you simply need to let go of every false story that convinced you that you were anything less than whole. The endless chase can finally come to an end. Not because you've collected everything the world has to offer, but because you've remembered that your greatest source of power was never waiting somewhere in the future. It has always been quietly waiting within you, patiently inviting you to recognize it once again. Most people spend their entire lives asking one question over and over again, even if they never say it out loud. How do I get what I want? It sounds like a reasonable question. In fact, society encourages it. Every advertisement, every motivational slogan, every success story seems to revolve around acquiring something that is currently missing. Get more money. Get more confidence. Get more opportunities. Get more recognition. Get the dream career. Get the perfect relationship. Get the life you've always imagined. From the moment we are old enough to understand the world around us, we are taught that happiness is something we pursue. We are told to chase it, earn it, prove ourselves worthy of it, and eventually, someday, if we work hard enough, we might finally reach it. But what if that question has been leading you in the wrong direction all along? What if the real question has never been, how do I get what I want? What if the question that quietly transforms everything is much simpler and much deeper? Who would I be if I already had it? Read that question slowly. Not what would I do to get it? Not when will it arrive? Not why hasn't it happened yet? But who would I be if it were already true? That question immediately shifts your attention away from the future and into the present. Because everything you desire is connected to a version of yourself. You don't simply want more money. You want to become the person who feels secure. You don't simply want a loving relationship. You want to become someone who feels deeply loved and appreciated. You don't simply want success. You want to become someone who wakes up believing their life has purpose. Look closely, and you'll notice something remarkable. Behind every desire is not an object. It is a feeling. You imagine receiving the promotion because you believe it will make you feel valuable. You imagine buying the dream home because you believe it will make you feel peaceful. You imagine meeting the right person because you believe it will make you feel complete. Every external goal is really pointing toward an internal experience. Yet most people never realize this. Instead, they spend years trying to collect experiences that they hope will eventually create the feeling they long for. But feelings that depend entirely on circumstances are fragile. If your confidence depends on compliments, one criticism can destroy it. If your happiness depends on money, one financial setback can shake your entire world. If your peace depends on everything going perfectly, life will always find a way to disturb you. Real transformation begins when the feeling no longer depends on the condition. Think about someone who genuinely feels loved. Do they spend every waking moment begging people for attention? Do they constantly wonder whether every text message means someone is losing interest? Do they panic every time a conversation doesn't go exactly as planned? Usually not. Why? Because love has become part of their identity. They don't chase what they already believe belongs to them. Now think about someone who secretly believes they are unworthy. Even if people care deeply about them, they may still question every compliment. They may doubt every promise. They may search for hidden meanings in simple conversations. Not because others are treating them badly, but because their inner identity filters everything they experience. The same words produce different emotions depending on the listener's assumptions. Imagine two singers standing backstage before an important performance. Both have practiced for months. Both know the songs. Both have equal talent. One quietly tells themselves, I belong here, I'm ready. This is my moment. The other whispers, everyone will notice my mistakes. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this opportunity. When they step onto the stage, who appears more confident, who connects more naturally with the audience, who recovers faster if something unexpected happens. Talent matters, preparation matters, but identity often decides how those gifts are expressed. The audience doesn't only respond to technical ability, they respond to certainty, and certainty always begins inside. That is why your self-image quietly shapes your entire life. Whether you realize it or not, you are constantly asking yourself one silent question. What kind of person am I? Your answer influences every decision you make. If you believe you are disciplined, waking up early becomes natural. If you believe you are healthy, caring for your body feels consistent. If you believe you are creative, ideas begin flowing more freely. If you believe you are unlucky, even opportunities may feel suspicious. Your identity becomes the invisible architect behind your daily habits. This explains why so many people struggle to maintain lasting change. Someone decides they want to become healthier. They buy expensive equipment. They join a gym. They download meal plans. For a few weeks they feel excited, but eventually old habits return. Why? Because deep inside they still identify as someone who always quits. Their behavior eventually follows their identity. Now imagine another person. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to exercise," they begin seeing themselves as someone who naturally takes care of their body. The actions become different because the identity becomes different. The same principle applies everywhere. You don't become confident because life finally gives you permission. You become confident because you stop waiting for permission. Confidence isn't created by perfect circumstances. It grows from repeated moments of trusting yourself. Think about learning to swim. At first the water feels intimidating. Every movement feels awkward. You hold on to the edge because you're afraid. Eventually something changes. Not the water. The water remains exactly the same. What changes is your relationship with it. You stop believing every movement will make you sink. You begin trusting your own ability. The water didn't transform, you did. Life often works exactly the same way. Many people spend years waiting for life to become less frightening. Instead of asking, "When will life become easier?" Perhaps ask, "When will I stop seeing myself as powerless?" That single shift changes everything, because power does not begin when circumstances become perfect. Power begins when your identity becomes stronger than your fears. Think about your favorite actor. When they accept a role, they don't spend every scene reminding themselves they are pretending. They study the character. They understand how that character thinks, how they walk, how they speak, how they respond under pressure. Eventually the role feels natural. For those moments, they embody a completely different identity. Now imagine if you approached your own life with that same commitment. Instead of rehearsing fear every day, what if you rehearsed confidence? Instead of repeatedly practicing doubt, what if you practiced certainty? Because make no mistake, every repeated thought is rehearsal. Every repeated emotion strengthens a habit. Every repeated assumption builds identity. If every morning begins with, "Nothing ever works out for me," you're rehearsing disappointment. If every challenge immediately becomes proof that life is unfair, you're rehearsing limitation. If every success is dismissed as luck, you're rehearsing insecurity. The mind becomes skilled at whatever it practices most often. Fortunately, the opposite is equally true. Practice gratitude and your attention begins noticing blessings. Practice courage, and difficult conversations become easier. Practice abundance and possibilities become more visible. Practice inner peace and external chaos loses much of its control over you. This doesn't happen overnight. Identity changes through repetition. Imagine writing with your non-dominant hand. At first it feels uncomfortable. Your handwriting looks uneven. Your muscles resist. But after enough practice, what once felt impossible begins feeling natural. Your mind works the same way. A new identity may feel unfamiliar in the beginning. You might feel like you're pretending. Old thoughts may return. Old fears may whisper. But unfamiliar does not mean false, it simply means new. Every confident person once felt uncertain. Every successful entrepreneur once questioned themselves. Every inspiring leader once doubted their own voice. The difference wasn't that they never experienced fear. The difference was that they stopped allowing fear to define who they were. There is a quiet strength that develops when you stop introducing yourself through your limitations. Notice how people often describe themselves. "I'm shy. I'm terrible with money. I'm unlucky. I'm always anxious. I'm just not one of those successful people." These statements seem harmless because they are repeated so casually. But every sentence becomes a small brick in the house called identity. The more often you repeat something, the more familiar it becomes. Eventually, familiarity feels like truth. Yet many of these descriptions were formed years ago during moments of pain, embarrassment, or disappointment. A child struggles while reading aloud in class. They begin believing they're unintelligent. A teenager experiences rejection. They begin believing they're unlovable. Someone starts a business that fails. They begin believing they're not meant for success. Years pass. The circumstances disappear, but the identity remains. Without realizing it, people carry yesterday's conclusions into today's opportunities. They enter new relationships expecting old heartbreak. They begin new careers expecting old failure. They approach fresh possibilities wearing outdated beliefs. Imagine trying to drive while looking only into the rearview mirror. How far would you get before crashing? Yet many people mentally do this every day. They navigate today's life through yesterday's experiences, not because they must, because they forgot they have another choice. The beautiful truth is that identity is not fixed. It is shaped by what you consistently accept as true about yourself. And what has been accepted can also be replaced, not through force, not through pretending, but through remembering. Remembering the version of yourself that existed before fear convinced you to shrink. Remembering the dreams you once believed were possible before disappointment taught you caution. Remembering that your value was never created by other people's opinions. It existed before their praise. It existed before their criticism. It existed before your greatest success. And it remained after your greatest mistake. Imagine standing in front of a mountain. Someone who believes they are weak sees an impossible climb. Someone who believes they are capable sees an adventure. The mountain hasn't changed, only the identity of the observer. That is why changing yourself changes the meaning of everything around you. The world begins responding differently because you begin participating differently. You speak with greater certainty. You notice opportunities instead of obstacles. You make decisions from confidence rather than desperation. People often describe this as life suddenly becoming easier. In reality, life may not have changed nearly as much as the person experiencing it. This is why chasing external results without changing identity often feels exhausting. You keep trying harder while carrying the same assumptions. But when identity changes, effort becomes lighter. Not because challenges disappear, because resistance decreases. You stop fighting yourself. You stop questioning every step. You stop waiting for proof that you're enough. Instead, you begin living from the quiet conviction that what you're seeking is already consistent with who you are. And once that conviction becomes natural, your actions begin matching it without force. You no longer ask, "How do I become worthy?" You begin living as someone who understands that worth was never something to earn. You stop asking, "How do I deserve success?" You begin acting as someone who naturally expects growth. You stop asking, "When will life finally choose me?" Because you realize the greatest decision was never life choosing you. It was you finally choosing the version of yourself that had been patiently waiting beneath years of doubt. That is the moment everything begins to change. Not because the world suddenly becomes different, but because you are no longer meeting the world as the person you used to believe you were. Think for a moment about something so ordinary that most people never stop to question it. Every morning, millions of people stand in front of a mirror. They adjust their clothes, fix their hair, straighten their posture, and make sure everything looks presentable before stepping into the world. If they notice something out of place, they don't become angry with the mirror. They don't argue with the reflection. They don't blame the glass for showing them what is there. They instinctively understand one simple truth. The mirror does not create the image. It only reflects it. Now imagine forgetting that truth. Imagine spending every day polishing the mirror, replacing the mirror, shouting at the mirror, or begging the mirror to change, all while refusing to change the person standing in front of it. From the outside, it would seem irrational. Yet this is exactly how many people approach their lives. They spend years trying to force the reflection to change while ignoring the source that creates it. When life doesn't go according to plan, the first instinct is often to fight the outside world. People say, "If only my boss appreciated me. If only my family understood me. If only I had been born with more opportunities. If only people treated me differently. If only the economy improved. If only luck were finally on my side." There is nothing wrong with wanting better circumstances. We all hope for healthier relationships, greater opportunities, financial security, and meaningful experiences. But the mistake happens when we believe those external conditions alone are responsible for the quality of our lives. The outside world certainly influences us, but the meaning we assign to that world influences us even more. Think back to a time when you misunderstood someone's intentions. Perhaps a friend walked past you without saying hello. For a moment, your thoughts raced. They're upset with me. Did I do something wrong? They don't want to talk to me anymore. Your emotions changed immediately. Maybe you felt hurt. Maybe you felt embarrassed. Maybe you spent hours replaying the moment in your mind. Then later you discovered the truth. Your friend simply hadn't seen you. The entire emotional experience was created not by reality, but by the story you told yourself about reality. Nothing outside had actually changed, only your interpretation. This happens more often than we realize. Someone receives constructive feedback at work. One person hears, "You're growing, here's how you can improve." Another hears, "You're not good enough." The words may be nearly identical. The experience is completely different. Why? Because each person is listening through a different identity. One expects growth. The other expects rejection. The mind rarely sees the world exactly as it is. It sees the world through the expectations it has accepted. Imagine wearing a pair of sunglasses with blue lenses every day for years. Eventually, blue begins to feel normal. You stop noticing the glasses altogether. You assume the world itself looks that way. Only when someone invites you to remove them do you realize that reality was never blue to begin with. Beliefs work in much the same way. Many of them become so familiar that they feel like objective truth. I never have enough. People always leave. I'm too late. Success is for other people. I always struggle. These thoughts may have been repeated for years. Eventually they stop sounding like opinions. They begin sounding like facts. Yet they are simply lenses through which reality is being interpreted. Imagine two people walking through the same neighborhood. One notices abandoned buildings, cracked sidewalks, and everything that appears broken. The other notices families laughing together, children playing outside, small businesses opening, flowers growing through concrete, and neighbors helping one another. Both observations are real. Neither person is lying, but each is seeing what their attention has been trained to notice. Attention is powerful. Whatever consistently receives your attention begins to feel larger. Think about buying a new car. Perhaps you choose a particular model you've never paid much attention to before. The very next day, you begin seeing that same car everywhere. Did thousands of new cars suddenly appear overnight? Of course not. They were already there. Your awareness simply changed. Life often unfolds in exactly the same way. Opportunities that once seemed invisible begin appearing when your expectations shift. Kindness becomes easier to notice. Solutions become easier to recognize. Creative ideas begin arriving more frequently. Not because the universe suddenly started producing them, but because your awareness became capable of receiving them. This is why inner transformation is so important. Your awareness determines the reality you consistently experience. Consider a radio. Right now, countless stations are broadcasting signals through the air around you. Music, news, conversations, sports, educational programs. They all exist simultaneously. Yet your radio only plays the station it is tuned to receive. Changing the station doesn't create new music. It allows you to hear what was already available. Your mind works much the same way. When it is constantly tuned to fear, it notices reasons to worry. When it is tuned to gratitude, it notices reasons to appreciate. When it is tuned to possibility, it notices opportunities that once seemed impossible. The broadcast changes because the frequency changes. Many people wait for life to improve before changing their thoughts. But perhaps changing your thoughts is exactly what allows you to recognize the life that has been trying to reach you all along. This doesn't mean pretending every situation is perfect. It doesn't mean ignoring injustice or refusing to solve problems. It simply means refusing to surrender your inner authority to every external event. Storms are part of life. No one escapes them. The difference lies in what the storm awakens within you. Some people become consumed by fear. Others discover strength they never knew they possessed. The storm reveals what has already been growing inside. Imagine an oak tree standing through powerful winds. Its branches may sway. Leaves may fall. Some limbs may even break. Yet the roots remain deep. The tree survives not because there is no storm, but because something beneath the surface is stronger than what happens above it. Your inner world is those roots. When your identity is rooted in peace, temporary chaos cannot easily uproot you. When your identity is rooted in worthiness, criticism loses much of its power. When your identity is rooted in abundance, temporary setbacks no longer convince you that everything is lost. The roots determine whether the tree remains standing. This is why protecting your inner conversations matters so much. Listen carefully to the way you speak to yourself. No one hears these conversations except you. Yet they shape every decision you make. If your inner voice constantly whispers, "You'll probably fail. Don't get your hopes up. Nothing ever changes," you begin moving through life cautiously. Not because life demanded caution, but because your internal dialogue trained you to expect disappointment. Now imagine replacing those conversations. "I can learn. I've overcome challenges before. New opportunities are always possible. I trust myself to handle whatever comes." Notice the feeling. The circumstances may not have changed yet, but your relationship with them already has. And relationship changes behavior. Behavior changes results. People often underestimate the incredible influence of expectation. A teacher who believes a student is capable usually encourages them differently. The student senses that confidence. They begin believing in themselves. Gradually, their performance improves. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon repeatedly. Expectations influence outcomes because people unconsciously respond to what they believe is possible. Now apply that idea to yourself. What expectations do you hold about your own future? Do you secretly expect disappointment? Do you expect success to be difficult? Do you expect relationships to fail? Do you expect money to disappear as quickly as it arrives? Whether spoken aloud or hidden beneath awareness, expectations quietly shape experience. Think about walking into a room convinced that nobody likes you. How would you behave? You might avoid eye contact, speak less, smile less. Leave early, your behavior becomes guarded. Ironically, people may respond with distance because they sense your hesitation. Later you conclude, "I knew they wouldn't like me." Yet the expectation helped create the experience. Now imagine entering the same room believing, "I enjoy meeting new people." Your posture changes. Your smile becomes natural. Conversations feel easier. Others respond differently because you are presenting a different version of yourself. The room did not change, you did. Life constantly reflects the energy of the person participating in it. Not perfectly, not instantly, but consistently over time. Every repeated assumption becomes an invitation. Every repeated belief becomes a direction. Every repeated emotion becomes a habit. Eventually those habits become what people call personality. Yet personality itself is often nothing more than practiced identity. That should inspire you. Because what has been practiced can be practiced differently. Imagine a pianist learning a difficult piece. At first, every movement feels awkward. Mistakes happen constantly. But repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity creates confidence. Confidence creates mastery. Your thoughts follow exactly the same process. Whatever you repeatedly think becomes easier to think again. Neural pathways strengthen. Emotional reactions become automatic. Eventually, you stop choosing the thought consciously. The thought begins choosing you. Unless you interrupt the pattern. That interruption is where transformation begins. Not by fighting every negative thought, but by remembering that thoughts are visitors. They are not your identity. Clouds pass across the sky remains. Thoughts pass across awareness. Awareness remains. You are not every fearful idea that enters your mind. You are the one observing those ideas. The moment you recognize that distinction, freedom begins. You stop believing every anxious prediction. You stop treating every fear as prophecy. You stop assuming every limitation is permanent. Instead, you become curious. You begin asking, what if this belief isn't the whole truth? What if I've been seeing life through an old lens? What if there is another way to experience this moment? Those questions open doors that certainty could never open. Because growth rarely begins with having all the answers. Growth begins with becoming willing to see differently. The reflection cannot change until the source changes. The echo cannot change until the voice changes. The harvest cannot change until the seed changes. And your life cannot consistently change until the identity beneath it changes. Everything outside eventually follows what is cultivated inside. That is why the greatest investment you will ever make is not merely in your career, your possessions, or even your circumstances. It is in the unseen world of your own consciousness. For that unseen world quietly shapes every conversation you have, every opportunity you recognize, every relationship you build, every decision you make, and every future you eventually create. When you stop fighting the reflection and begin transforming the one who stands before it, life gradually begins to reveal something extraordinary. The world has not been opposing you as much as it has been reflecting the image you have consistently carried within yourself. And the moment that inner image begins to change, the reflection has no choice but to follow.